And welcome everyone to the next enthralling lecture in advertising MKTG 2033. And today we'll be looking at objectives and budgeting. So, first, budgeting. I know you've been looking forward to it. Budgeting is the action expressing your priorities. It should be reflective of how you'll be achieving your overall strategy. Summarise your budget spend in 200 to 300 words in your campaign, just in case I can't work it out from the charts. And yes, that has happened. In practice, budgets are closely guarded secrets though, because they reveal strategy. So, we'll look at types of budgeting methods used in advertising. Fixed amount, competitive parity, usually set at a percentage level, until the objective is hit or the boss kills it, number 3. Number 4, percentage of revenue. And number 5, return on investment figure. Fixed amount is exactly that. Used by many organisations from the largest to the smallest, the fixed amount also usually fixes the number of objectives that can be achieved from a set amount. Most startups work off fixed amounts, so it is the hardest to work with because you can't spend more unless you borrow more, and that is hard. Competitive parity. Popular in some industries, such as fast food and fast-moving consumer goods, we all like things fast in marketing, this is where the advertising and comms budget is set at a percentage level of the benchmark or market leader. McDonald's, for example, usually spends around 20 to 25% of their budget on marketing activities, which means competitors will base their spend on being a percentage of that. Subway and KFC, for example, are around 85 to 90% of the McDonald's spend. In others, this may mean a lower spend, but it depends on other competitors and what they're doing. Hit the objective. This is spend whatever it takes to hit the objective. When Vodafone and Optus entered the Australian market, for example, both wanted to achieve market share figures and burned through cash until they hit it. Optus did not make a profit for close to 10 years in Australia. Vodafone also lost a lot of money until it hit around a 10% market share. This strategy method is usually done for new brands. This budgeting method is usually only ever done by large companies due to the spend sometimes required to hit broader marketing objectives. Percentage of revenue. This method sets marketing spend as a percentage of revenue. Whilst the percentage is fixed, as revenue is not, this can make budgeting tricky as it can be difficult to know how much may be available to do long-term brand building activities. This method, though, is very popular in companies looking for a more managerial led marketing effort, as marketing is seen as just one aspect of organisational operations and not necessarily the single most important one. Return on investment figure. For some organisations, they have a return on investment figure, which they set for budgeting in advertising and comms. This takes a lot of work and knowing your costs very well. Budgeting is very tricky because this can vary dramatically from one year to the next. It is best used with products in maturity and decline, as margins are more certain by then, and where you have a good database of customers where you know what they may be willing to pay for the product. Business to business uses this method extensively, as spend can be targeted down to even the individual business. Blend it. You may see a combination of methods used in some organisations. For example, some large organisations may have a percentage of revenue method, but also run a campaign where they will spend a lot to hit one or two objectives, usually around a new product being introduced. Or they may have a market parity method, but then use return on investment in some product categories which might be maturity or decline. This is where you may see lifecycle play a role because new products may have hit the objective method, but that comes at a cost of the existing products being scaled back just to keep a return on investment figure. In your campaign document, I expect to see 100% budget allocation pie chart, and here's an example right now. As you can see from that chart, you can see how it's broken into different chunks of the pie, each with a percentage number, and also a description of what that actual method is. So you can do this, which is better to see, but for some people, this becomes a little bit messy. So then you might be looking at using the 6 elements of the promotional mix method. But either way, it needs to add up to 100%. Budget allocation. The budget allocation should be realistic, but this is the new COVID era. Spending is going to be not necessarily capped, but be conscious of money. You will be held accountable. You do not have millions, perhaps tens of thousands if you're lucky right now, even as a startup. A good guide in dollars to be spent is 67% of revenue is usually spent on advertising and IMC. The next few slides look at figures from Deloitte. This one here is the marketing budgets by industry. And you can see where we talked about before the competitive parity method in consumer packaged goods, that figure can be as high as 24% of overall budget. And you can see how it slides back down to the energy sector, usually monopolies, where they only spend around 4% of their budget on marketing activities. Marketing expenses by industry can also vary. In other words, keep this in mind when you design your own advertising campaign, because it may help as a handy guide on what other people might be doing in your sector you're targeting. And free, you say, what then? Well, say hello to peso. Peso means paid, earned, shared, and owned of media types. And you can see how it's broken into each category there. This is very popular in the digital age because it focuses a lot on how you might earn media or share it, or you might own your own. So in other words, trying to keep costs well down and only using paid as a last resort or when you need to achieve quick and long-lasting impact. Do look at each category on this slide though. It is quite interesting to look at. So peso needs to be broken down to whatever category it fits into, which will be digital, PR, and direct primarily, but there may be some crossover. You don't need to budget for free, obviously, but you do need to explain peso in your strategy section. In real life, peso and models similar to this are becoming a new digital promotions and comms mix. So as stated in weeks prior, something to keep ahead of because access to my head expires when this course does. Okay. Now we'll cover objectives. Objectives. Objectives are always based on overall marketing and branding objectives. And these are based on business objectives and overall business strategy, which round about now, thanks to the coronavirus, everything is up in the air. Don't forget though the objectives of advertising and what advertising can and can't do. Also keep in mind your budgeting method because more often than not, you have to work with little and not lots. That is going to be more the case post-COVID, even though research says it shouldn't. And you can see the image opposite there, the objectives of advertising. There are 11 according to that image, and they're not bad ones to look at. When you write objectives though, remember this SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. One line objective, maybe two. One paragraph though, explanation tops. Paragraph being 8 lines. An example, to achieve 10% brand awareness with target market X within 12 months. Then a single 8-line max paragraph to explain. Well, that is the finish for this topic. Very short, very quick, but in that case, you can have the time to spend to go over this a couple times if needed to understand some of the concepts I've explained here. Have fun, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.